Boom bobby, do boom bobby, do bum 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 bum, baby. Pressure pushing down on me, pressing down on you. No man asked for. Under pressure that burns a building down, splits a family in two, puts people on the streets. Boom bobby, boom bobby, idea, idea. That's okay. It's a terror of knowing what this world is about. Watching some good friends screaming, let me out. Pray tomorrow gets me higher. Pressure on people, people on the streets. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Unrelenting Alchemist, all spiritual, all the time. And we want to talk to you today about the alluring charm of the Apsaras. Here is a rich narrative that's going to draw from some Hindu scriptures, and it's going to focus on the celestial maidens of Hindu mythology, their mythos, and their role as divine dancers and enchantresses, and their symbolic as well as spiritual significance. So let's get into the mythos and meaning of the Apsaras, the celestial maidens of Hindu lore. So let's begin with our introduction of Apsaras in the celestial realm. In the resplendent cosmology of Hinduism, where gods, demons, sages, and mythical beings traverse the heavens, Apsaras stand out as luminous female spirits, dancers of the divine court, embodiments of beauty, seduction, movement, and art. These celestial beings are neither fully divine nor fully mortal. Instead, they inhabit a liminal space between heaven and earth, often manifesting in the service of the Devas or the Gandharvas, our celestial musicians. The word Apsara comes from Sanskrit and it's typically interpreted as those who move in the waters, Aps being the word for water and Ra being the word for moving. This emphasizes their fluid, their graceful and enchanting nature. They are considered to be semi-divine, possessing supernatural beauty, eternal youth, and mastery over dance, music, but also seduction. Their role is not merely ornamental. Apsaras are active agents of cosmic balance, karma, and sometimes even the forces of temptation. So let's go into the origins of these celestial maidens. According to Hindu scriptures, the Apsaras were born during the Samudra Manthan, the legendary churning of the ocean of milk by the Devas and the Asuras, to obtain Amrita, the nectar of immortality. Alongside divine treasures like Lakshmi, the goddess of wealth, and Airavata, the celestial elephant, Apsaras emerged as embodiments of aesthetic and as well as sensual divinity. There are two roughly broad categories of Apsaras. There are the Daivic Apsaras, who are the celestial Apsaras who dwell in Indra's court and who dance for the gods. There are also Laukic Apsaras, Apsaras who descend to earth, sometimes to test mortals or to interfere in the course of spiritual penance. They are often associated with Indra, the king of the gods, whose heavenly court, Svargaloka, is adorned with their presence. The Apsaras, along with the Gandharvas, maintain a rich heavenly aesthetic and emotional harmony of the higher realms through their celestial performance, a divine act that brings joy, beauty, and order to the universe. So let's talk about some of the famous Apsaras and their stories. Over time, several Apsaras became renowned figures in their own right. They feature across the Mahabharata, the Ramayana, and the Puranas, weaving through stories that explore themes of seduction, artistry, love, karma, and liberation. One famous Apsara is known as Menaka. Arguably the most famous Apsara, Menaka was sent by Indra to distract the sage Vishwamitra from his intense meditation. Her beauty and grace broke Vishwamitra's penance, resulting in the birth of Shakuntala, a central figure in Kalidasa's classical play, the Abhinavakantulum. And Menaka is portrayed as conflicted, a divine agent, performing her duty, but also a mother and woman of emotion. And I want to say at some point, even though the sage knew what she was up to, he had fallen in love with her, and she had fallen in love with him. Now, there's another famous Apsara in the Ramayana. This particular Apsara is interrupted by the Rakshasa Ravana, who is cursed as a result. Rambha often appears in stories where mortals must resist temptation, and so her name has become synonymous with enchantment. Now, there's another famous Apsara known as Urvashi. Urvashi, whose name means widely pervasive, is perhaps the most spiritually symbolic of all the Apsaras, created from the thigh of Narayana, as per one legend. She is considered to be the ideal of divine femininity, at least in Hinduism, right? She appears in the Rig Veda, as well as becomes a central figure in the tale of King Pururavas, who is a mortal who falls in love with her, and their tragic romance represents transient nature of beauty and desire. Now, we also have Tilottama, who is a divine Apsara created from the finest particles from across the universe. Tila being a word that represents sesame seed sized portions. Tilottama was tasked with distracting and destroying the demon brothers Sunda and Upasunda. They were immune to death at the hands of men, so she lured them into conflict with each other, demonstrating how beauty can be a weapon of dharma. In other words, they both were so taken by her, they fought each other until they killed each other. Now we have Ghritachi, who was involved in numerous stories of various sages and warriors, acting as a celestial mother. Her unions with the sages resulted in the birth of Vyasa, the compiler of the Vedas, as well as other significant figures. She symbolizes fertility, divine union, and the bridging of realms. There are also Apsaras who are talked about in the dance of karma. The Apsaras are often misunderstood as distractions or seductresses. However, within the Dharmic worldview, their roles are deeply karmic. They do not merely tempt for sport, they act as agents of divine will, testing the spiritual resilience of sages and kings. Obviously, primarily male sages and kings, but obviously maybe some females. If they have that persuasion, there's nothing wrong with that. Now, it's often used to help these individuals who are being tempted find a divine path later on. So the dance is not frivolous, it's a sacred performance, a cosmic art form that celebrates creation, that mirrors the rhythms of the universe, and it also keeps Svarga vibrant with blissful resilience and resonance, right? They are also Sanskritic embodiments of rasa, which is an essence or flavor of deeply rich emotional and spiritual expression. So why have Apsaras become these iconic semi-divine beings that I've gone about describing for the past few minutes? Well, there are several reasons why the Apsaras hold such a prominent place in the cosmology of Hinduism. Firstly, there is the union of art and spirit. The Apsaras exemplify a non-duality of art and divinity. In a culture where sacred dance, such as the Bharatanatyam and the Odissi, are considered to be worshipped, the Apsaras are seen as guardians of a aesthetic devotion. They're also representative of feminine power and Shakti. As semi-divine feminine beings, Apsaras manifest aspects of Shakti, the creative, destructive, alluring, and somewhat temptful feature of the universe. Their beauty is a form of divine power and certainly not divine weakness. They represent both invitation and initiation into deeper and deeper mysteries. They're also considered to be threshold beings. They are liminal. They move between the heavens and the earth. This makes them relatable as well as symbolic. They speak to the parts of ourselves that are between the mundane and the mystical, between the material and the eternal. They also, as indicated previously, test human desire as well as spiritual consequence by appearing to critical figures to test their resolve. So the Apsaras embody a duality of desire. They're not inherently evil, but they expose the soul's attachments and their illusions as well. Their interactions with mortals serve as powerful allegories for human yearning and the impermanence of pleasure, living in the moment. Let's talk about Apsaras in dance and devotion. Across Southeast Asia, even in Cambodia, Thailand, and Indonesia, the influence of the Apsaras expanded beyond scripture. In the Khmer temples like the Angkor Wat, thousands of Apsara carvings adorn the sacred walls. Here they are depicted in elaborate headdresses and celestial poses, reflecting their divine origins. The Cambodian Apsara dance, which is refined and passed down through generations, is a living spiritual art form. Their myth traveled beyond borders and often merged with local cosmologies, transforming them into pan-Asian symbols of divine femininity. They have sacred movement and they have balance between form and transcendence. In conclusion, we think of them as celestial reflections of the inner world. The Apsaras are far more than just mythological dancers of heaven. They are archetypes of divine seduction, as well as cosmic beauty and the transformative nature of art and desire. They hold up a mirror to our own soul's longings and teach that behind every moment of pleasure lies a deeper truth, one of memory, one of liberation, and one of sacred return. To honor the Apsaras is to embrace the dance of life, not just with detachment, but also with reverence and awareness. They remind us that even the most enchanting illusion can become a gateway to truth. If we are wise enough to see beyond the surface of the Apsaras, and we can see within them the sparks of our own divine origin, then we will have learned many powerful lessons. Thank you for joining me in this sacred hour. This has been the Unrelenting Alchemist, and hope you enjoyed this episode. Until next time, my friends, walk wisely, walk bravely, and when the dark calls, answer not with fear, but with fire and light. Take care.
And if I don't see you, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I love